Hey guys, hope everyone's doing well, especially down south in Texas and some of the other states that are pretty heavily impacted by the extreme weather events and cold that we've been experiencing. Here in Chicago, it's been pretty cold, but thankfully all the power's on, water's good. So I know there's a lot of people hurting right now, and I wish the best to all of them. I just wanted to create this video just to quickly talk about the existence of party systems and why we will always really have a two-party system here in the United States, and generally speaking, some sort of form of two major political coalitions in most true and functioning democracies in the world. So, you know, I kind of explained in earlier videos what the party systems are. And, what I think is important to kind of distinguish on why we will always have two major parties here in the US is that, you know, in my book, a political party, right, exists to get its candidates elected. How do you do that? Well, you do it by gaining a majority of the vote, or, in the case of the US, for presidential elections, a majority of the electoral college, and in house races, in single member districts, every candidate attempts to get at least a plurality of the vote. So this can happen, in a few ways as you look to form some sort of governing coalition. One, in the case of the US, is that you can cobble together, political coalitions currently organized under the Democratic and Republican parties, in order to achieve your goals. So in the case of Republicans, this means putting together, at least traditionally, a coalition of, more, of business, Christian evangelicals, rural voters, and the like, in order to, try to get 50% plus one of the vote and win the upcoming election. Meanwhile, Democrats in the present age rely on a coalition of, generally speaking, pro-labor, pro-worker policies combined with, generally pro-minority, pro-civil rights type of social policies, pro-choice, pro-LGBT rights and gay marriage, in order to get to, to form their majority. Now, we could say, for example, well, what if we just split up the parties, right? It would be better if we just had, let's say, instead of having a two-party system, relying on single member districts like we have in the US and in the United Kingdom, and instead move to some sort of more proportional system that they have, for example, in the Knesset in Israel, for example, where you have to clear a certain threshold, but provided you clear that threshold relatively low in Israel, for example, your party will gain seats. So in the case of the US, we kind of think to ourselves like, well, what if instead of, a current two-party system, we had maybe four major parties where you had kind of, if you think of the current wings of the two parties, broadly speaking, maybe you have like a more moderate Democratic wing of the party in its own image of, let's say, Joe Biden forms. And then you have another wing that forms into its own parties led by, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or Bernie Sanders, generally speaking, more economic, left-wing populisms, pro-democratic socialist type of party. And then meanwhile, on the right, for the Republicans, you split off into kind of your pro-Trump right-wing populist faction, and a more establishment version of the party led by, someone in the image of like Larry Hogan, or for that matter, the traditional conservatives, so like, George Bush type of, the Bush family type of political alignment. Well, that's fine. We could have that. But at the end of the day, these coalitions are going to be instead of having these factions within one party, we now just have divided them up into a few different types of parties. So at the end of the day, when you look to form a governing coalition, like they do in Israel or in other parliamentary systems, like in the UK or Germany, well, what happens at the end of the day? The parties come together, whether that is, Social Democrats in alliance with the Greens, or Christian-based center parties in Germany allying with, you know, the center left in Germany, or the center right in Germany, or in the UK, the conservatives aligning themselves with the liberal Democrats. At the end of the day, those two parties are forming a political coalition together to get 50% plus one of the vote. And really, for that government to survive, it has to keep those coalitions intact and the factions of the party happy. Otherwise, you get a vote of no confidence, at least in the traditional parliamentary system. And if the coalition fails to hold together, you get the declaration of no confidence, and then you have to have new elections so you can ideally reform that coalition, potentially in one form or another. So it's just important to kind of keep that in mind when we discuss, the formation of the party system here in the U.S. and the different party systems. Because while we all kind of like imagine this ideal without parties and, a third party in the U.S. that's able to take on the Republicans and Democrats, or for that matter, just one party, maybe you're a Democrat that really wants to see, the so-called ascendant majority here that's going to deliver permanent democratic rule. It's important to remember that, at the end of the day, these coalitions are always shifting. Every party at the end of the day needs to get 50% plus one of the vote. And there's not a whole lot of benefit to getting too much more than that, because the more factions you have in your political coalition, the more difficult it is to manage. And the more likely one faction will defect to a other party, so that their goals can get better represented in the party that maybe has, less of support in the country. So just something to keep in mind. I think now I've kind of done enough prelude to now kind of delve into the rise of the first party system. But yeah, just wanted to get this out, just to kind of set where I'm coming from with regards to my mindset on political party systems, because, really it's important to kind of have that as like a basis, because, there's a few ways that I think that, party politics and party systems could develop in the U.S. moving forward. But for me, it really kind of relies on like a theoretical underpinning that, well, you're always going to have two major political coalitions. And at least in the case of the U.S. with our single member districts, the best way to get those coalitions' goals across is through the organization of a two-party system, basically split 50-50 down the middle. So that's it for this video. Thank you guys for watching, and I will upload my next video shortly. Have a good one. Stay safe, stay warm.